chemicals that find their way into our coastal waterways, which in result changes the chemistry of our water and doesn't actually give us the opportunity to know what's happening. And what ends up happening is that these chemicals turn into invisible toxins that cause billions of dollars of damages to coastal waterways and tourism every year. Along with that, about 11 million tons of marine debris enters our oceans on an annual basis, out of which 6.6 million of that stays within our coastal waterways across the globe, which heavily affects coastal businesses like marinas, coastal restaurants, and tourism economies that thrive off of having a beautiful coastline and attracting people to that region. And so what we did was we participated in an I-Corps accelerator program, and we learned that 82% of the marinas that we talked to were cleaning debris for roughly 2 hours a day with more than one person in that region. And they were actually losing customers because of how bad the adverse effects were on their business. We also realized that there was a need for water quality data, and many of them hadn't invested in solutions yet. We'll dive into that. We realized as well in places like Florida and also in places with blue-green algae blooms that many people and municipalities need access to water quality data to track harmful algal blooms and cyanobacteria and toxins. So many of these samples are being collected by hand. There's no streamlined access to that data, and it plays a pretty big role on these massive pollution events and what these municipalities can do to protect themselves. So what we're developing is kind of a 1-2 punch towards coastal pollution. So we have on the left is what we're calling a Roomba for marinas. It's an autonomous drone that skims for marine debris and plastics, natural like dead fish and oil. And then on the right, we have a data instrument that can either be strapped to the Roomba device, or it can be a standalone data monitoring unit that can report live metrics in live time to municipalities, marina dockmasters, harbors, and even the US government on what's going on in our coastal waterways and if there's concern on a pollution event. So actually, let me see if I can take you to this video. Sorry, I'll want to show you guys this just for a couple of seconds. So here is one of our prototypes in a waterway in Cincinnati that's driving around and picking up all these gross pieces of plastic and these natural debris items like logs and sticks that sometimes even affect these customers and their boats themselves. So over a 45-minute span that this ran this day, it was enough to fill up a tractor bucket worth of trash, which was a lot. So the way that this ends up working is very similar to that video. It'll skim for the trash. That arm that you see on the bag is actually a pivot point that presents the trash from the bottom of the machine up to about knee or ankle height for the user, at which point they can just reach down and take the collected trash and empty it however they please. We also have a data dashboard. I'm not going to take you guys to this video, but it's pretty simple. You get GPS data monitoring on where the device is. It gives you time series data and a score based on how good or bad your water quality is. And you can also request new data for water quality monitoring. So a lot of the features of this are that, you know, it's completely solar powered and electric. We're providing these lifetime data services that can eventually, at a widespread scale, turn into predictive analytics about X, Y, and Z is starting to kind of happen in your water, we believe that it means red tide is going to be here in about a week or two. And very much the same thing for the Roomba device. It's completely electric. It collects multiple forms of trash or debris. It's fully autonomous, so you just let it go and let it drive. And then we have, like I said, the option for those disposable bags to have ease of use with the customer. And some of our competitors in the space, we have people like YSI, NextSense. They mainly focus on handheld devices or don't provide a form of predictive analytics for lifetime monitoring. So what we're doing is really trying to streamline the data so that anybody anywhere in the world can access it from their desktop. And as well with the collection device, we are working on creating an affordable solution for these marinas that also provides a premium product, because right now Rand Marine is offering about a $25,000 product, which is far beyond what we've learned the price point is for a lot of these marinas. So we're actually doing a hardware as a service model where we plan on providing the hardware on a monthly basis, almost basically a rental, where they're getting access to the hardware, they're getting access to the data and the user interface, all for roughly between this amount. We're still doing some customer discovery to see if this is the right number, but it makes these hardware units pretty profitable in the long term. And same with the data pricing. We'll have an initial installation fee and then a small monthly access fee to the platform to get that data. And so the market opportunity, the obtainable market, I'll just focus on the obtainable market for now. If we were to access all Florida marinas, California, Texas, Maryland, and New York, that's 6,000 of the US coastal marinas, 10,000 of the coastal homeowners associations, and 3,000 of the municipalities. That puts us at a $300 million obtainable market. And our exit strategy is to work with some of these companies. We have a really good relationship with Sea-Doo as a corporate sponsor. We're starting to have conversations with Coca-Cola, and they also have done a lot of work in this space, working with Ocean Cleanup, 4Ocean, and the Bebot. And then Xylem as well. They acquire water tech startups left and right. YSI is one of them. So that would be very interesting to see if we could start building relationships with them. And then, yeah, today, like I mentioned, we have a lot going on. We've been backed by a number of people and have got a lot of support. We have about 10 letters of intent and hope to launch our innovation in late June. We believe that this is really the right time right now because coastal pollution is only getting worse in both the chemical side and the physical side of things. So if ever there's a solution needed for improving the efficiency of these businesses, it's now. And then it comes down to our team. So you have myself, David, and Jonathan, who are the three founders of this startup. David and I went to Xavier University together and graduated with degrees in entrepreneurship and management. David's currently pursuing his MBA at Loyola Chicago. And then Jonathan is an international student from Ecuador who came to the University of Cincinnati for his master's degree in mechanical engineering and currently works at BD Medical, but he has history of working in places like Volvo and other robotics startups. Chris is a former Army officer who was able to join our team through the University of Cincinnati's funding path with us as an entrepreneur in residence. And he's a former executive from Procter & Gamble and Ocean Spray. And I'll just stop it right there and kind of open it up to any questions. I know I didn't present an ask slide. If I were to have an ask out of this, it would be for connections into the water space in Florida. So But other than that, I'll start looking at the chat to see what questions I could answer.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Rupert, are you gonna be our question moderator?
Sure, I'll be more than happy to. So, so thank you, Michael. That was quite informative. And let's see, I'm going through here. So first question was, Eric, what happens to the waste after it's collected and how much can it hold?
Good question. After the waste is collected, we leave it up to the marinas to decide what they'll do with it. We've looked into finding community partners that would work with us. We've looked into finding other third-party innovations that could handle the waste, handle and sort it. That is actually the hardest, most complicated part of this entire process. When working with people, I mentioned Coca-Cola. We've been having lots of conversations with them about how can we implement this solution. It's so important that it goes to the right place. So bringing in community partners like Keep America Beautiful or local nonprofits that maybe are able to come in, or even finding waste management partners, that's been something that we've been working on. We just haven't found a good answer to yet. And to answer the question about how much it can hold between 50 and 100 pounds of trash per trip. And we would have liked to make that actually a larger capacity, but through working with that marina that I showed in that video, we learned that there's actually kind of a threshold that it should be for the user experience, because then you have some kid or somebody who, you know, can't really lift 150 pounds of trash and is then having to really struggle to find what to do with it. So that was a good learning experience for us.
On that note, I'll skip ahead to a question that something that I mentioned was, you know, you probably want to automate that trash removal, because as you begin to grow, as you begin to scale and so forth, people are gonna be needing larger things, you know, larger receptacles. And so one idea is to automate it, right? So, you know, you could, you know, develop some sort of a complementary basket or something like that, that people can just walk over there and have a trailer, or you know, they typically have some sort of automated machinery in the area, and they can just, you know, lift up your basket full and put it someplace, and then a person can just like put the new basket in, and it only takes a couple minutes and it can be back out there. Mm-hmm. And the other idea that I thought of was maybe having a central, like a barge-based type of a thing that would pick up the baskets and just dump it on the barge and then put it back in, which would also take a minute or so. And that could be done through a partnership. And then that way you can have one barge can service 5 or 6 of these things at a time. Right?
Yeah, that's a good idea. And that makes a lot of sense. We've thought about how to automate this process. We think that long-term we'll want to develop some type of system that either attaches to the dock or, like you said, can almost make that swap of the bag very easy.
Right.
Right now, the way that we anticipate customers doing it is that there's just 4 clips on the bag thing. You unclip them. The bag has a drawstring on it. So then you pull the drawstring and you can take it and set it on the dock, loop the drawstring on the clips. And then the only difference or the pain point there that I would say is you're carrying that trash to the nearest garbage can, which can be kind of gross depending on what it's collected. So,
so Eric,
it's a lot of water weight, isn't it? Wouldn't it be a lot of water weight because everything's wet when it came out?
It's a mesh bag. So the water will sift through. Yeah.
Well, there's still gonna be some in there, but, so he also asked, can it deal with algae blooms?
So it cannot, be careful with how I phrase this. It cannot deal with stopping algae blooms. The point of the water quality data is to give municipalities a proactive approach to knowing what's going on in their waterways before a pollution event happens. And once that pollution event happens, it can, if the algae is physical, it can collect the algae. If the algae is more like just chemical, and would sift right through the bag, unfortunately, it's not going to be able to stop that. However, with things like red tide, where you have hundreds of thousands of dead fish rolling onto your coastline, it definitely can help businesses handle that by removing that biomass from the water. So,
Okay. So Shan, you had a question?
Yeah, Michael, this is amazing. You guys are on an amazing mission. I love it. You have an amazing team. A couple of questions. One is, why did you pick the brand Clean Earth rather than Clean Water?
question. I think that, and I've been asked this quite a lot actually. When I started this, I had the vision of creating both similar devices for water and for land. So I wanted it to be more of a holistic, I don't know, the name itself tells you what it is. I wanted it to be more holistic around the opportunity to
I think
expand.
one day that could be your vision, but it will be more meaningful if you can stick to close to possible to the water. Look into that, because that's what you are trying to do. Clean water, it's part of clean earth. Other one is, look at the competition slide you have. I think it will be good if you can go from left to right rather than right to left. Check, can you check the competition slide?
Yes, yeah, I agree. And we have Chris, who is our branding person, who's talked a lot with us about the potential of changing that name. To be honest, that's one of the hardest things about
No,
it.
that's a beautiful chart. That's amazing. It speaks for itself. But our brain goes from left to right, unless you speak Urdu. That's the way we think. That's the way we think. And you want to occupy the right quadrant top. That's what you have it. You have a competitive edge. Nobody can touch it. That's what you want to position all the time. You will keep on innovating. That's your existence actually. So it will be nice taking the columns left to right rather than right to left. That will look beautiful. It speaks for itself. Put your brand there,
The
logo.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
My suggestion though would be to do away with the table chart altogether and go to a quadrant.
Yeah, yeah.
Because in a quadrant chart, what Sean's saying is you put your bigger logo all the way up to the right, and that way, it's and then you have the logos of your various different, and you've got more than just two, trust me. And
Yeah, we do.
put 8 or 9 of them on there, but then pick 2 things, right, that are the biggest things to what a potential investor would be interested in knowing, right? And relevant to how much money they could make and so forth. So I would find those 2 things and create that quadrant, and then you're going to be up here, way up here or whatever, and everybody else is going to be down there on the lower left, or definitely not that close to you. So that's what I would suggest as well. So Denny was asking if the EPA knows about this or if they're using this. And
so the EPA, there's a local Ohio branch in Cincinnati where we're actually located. that focuses on water. And we have been making a lot of efforts to get connected with them, but have unfortunately not been super successful so far. So one of the government organizations that we're starting to talk to is ERDC and the Army Corps of Engineers. They handle all public and coastal waterways. So hopefully there's something that comes of that. Right now, we have a really, really talented person developing our autonomy that's focusing on ensuring that the entire system is US government compliant so that we can actually contract to them. Because yeah, that'd be ideal. That'd be really awesome.
You were one question that I had too was that you were looking at your TAM, SAM, and SOM, and you said your SOM was about 300 million, but that was for 10% of all the places in the coastal areas, or was that all the coastal areas?
That was for 10% of the places in the coastal areas.
And what was the time frame for that?
That's a good question. I think that would be, actually, you know, I don't know. That's a good question.
Okay, so if it's 10 years, it might be more plausible, but if it was 5 years, you'd have to show them a different type of model, like a leasing model or something like that, where you can just pump out machinery and whatnot and products, and then people can lease them from you. And so you send a guy over there or a girl over there and train them how to use it, and then move on to the next place and so forth. And then it's not now a subscription model, right? All right. So that would be my suggestion. And Jane says you may want to consider working with the Florida Association of Counties, the National League of Cities, Water Management Districts in Florida, Urban Land Institute, International City Management Association, and so forth. By the way, before you bug out of here, it's best to save the chat. So you'll have all these recommendations and questions and things like that saved. Your Marina Roomba, that actually was a pretty interesting analogy. I also suggested there's a lot of nonprofit organizations that are out there and other sustainability and ESG organizations out there that would be very interested in helping out.
Cooper, let me interrupt for a second here. Michael,
Sure.
you got a pen and pencil handy? I'm gonna give you a phone number for Rotary International.
Rotary International. All right.
Yeah, it's our headquarters in Evanston, Illinois. The phone number is 847-866-3000. And tell them you want to talk to WASRAG. That's WASRAG. That's the Water and Sanitation Action Group of Rotary International. There's 1.2 million Rotarians around the world. Every year, the president of Rotary International has a number of things that he points to. This is what we want to do. The biggest one for the past few years is water. Water is what wars are fought over. It's one of the biggest problems we have. I'm sure that at any given time, there are all sorts of Rotary clubs around the world that are dealing with stuff like this, would love to know what you have, would buy this stuff from you and put it to use. I mean, you're on the verge of something really terrific here. You really are. I mean, that's technology the world's needed for a long period of time. I mean, I can't tell you the number of body waters just in our state alone in Florida that are all messed up, that need this, not to mention the entire world.
Yeah, then Esther was asking, thanks, Denny. Esther was asking, is this patented yet? Do you have any IP protection yet?
So our IP situation is very interesting. We are solely university funded at the moment. So the University of Cincinnati has given us $130,000 for the R&D cycle on this. Because of that funding, the university actually owns our intellectual property that we developed with that funding. But we have access to exclusive licensing for all the IP that we've developed. And essentially that exclusive licensing just acts as a royalty for commercialization of the IP. So we, in the next couple of months here, we'll be activating that exclusive licenseship as we begin commercializing this stuff.
Right, but it still needs to be protected.
Yes, but that's taken care of by the tech transfer office at the university.
So they have a provisional, at least a provisional pending or something like that?
I guess what I mean by taken care of is they handle the protection.
Right, but that's not protection. It's protection, to an investor or to your prospective clients. They're interested in knowing that what have you got that nobody else can do, and that the only surefire way to do that, well, it's not even 100% sure, but is to get patented, right? And so universities, and such as Cincinnati's and so forth, they have massive, patenting capability and portfolios and things like that. So I would encourage you to encourage them to get the patents on this taken care of, because otherwise there's really nothing to license, right? So yeah, I would definitely do that if that's the route you want to take. Otherwise, I would just suggest doing a deal with this university and saying, why don't you just let us run with it and we'll pay you a royalty, and let us patent it and all that, and then you get a royalty in perpetuity, and you don't even have to pay for the patents and all that. We'll take care of it.
So the royalty isn't in perpetuity. It's capped at a certain amount, and once you hit that certain amount, you receive full transfer of ownership of the IP that's been filed.
Okay.
So,
And
it's a good deal. You just have to enter into that agreement, and when you do, they, I believe, begin the filing process with everything. So.
right.
Michael, this is a really important point. You can't forget this. If you're not protected, sooner or later, somebody will steal it. I can guarantee you they will do that.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
you
think,
really need patent protection.
Yeah, Shan, you had your hands raised.
yeah, if nothing else you are taking away, Michael, today, this is it. You guys are sitting on a gold mine. I don't think university understands that. You guys have to take charge and protect it as apt. At least
Yeah.
provisional patent in your pocket.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you guys have nothing. Somebody is going to already stolen it, most probably.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you have no clue. You are sitting on a gold mine. Amazing power on this.
Yeah.
Global implication.
Right.
Don't worry about the royalty and everything. It will come to you later on.
Yeah.
We can discuss that.
Yeah, Rod, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I worked with a biotech company out in Utah, and they did epigenetic testing for various things. They started off with male infertility. Now they're doing all kinds of stuff with diseases and everything. And they actually have an exclusive licensing agreement with the University of Utah, because the professors there are the ones that developed all of the, IP and everything. And so it's a very valid model, but you just have to make sure that you are absolutely on top of it, especially since you're going out now and promoting it via 1 Million Cups. There are people that, your water Roomba is not, it could be unique for you and you could get a patent on it, or at least so that other people have to license that patent. But if you don't act, then you're going to have some big risks. And I understand you say, well, in a couple months. I would personally, after we're done with this call, put everything into motion, because it sounds like you do have some money right now. If you needed to get a lawyer on your side, so that an IP lawyer, so that he could encourage the university to take the steps or whatever it takes. But the patents and the IP that biotech company has are worth literally tens to hundreds of millions of dollars. And so they have exclusive rights to it. Everything works So I understand where you're at, but please take action quickly.
Mhm.
I second that.
Now,
Just,
To
yeah.
build that, we are in a tricky spot. There are restrictions on the funding and how we use it.
Get a good attorney to help. Do you have a good attorney on your team yet?
We do. We have a great attorney from Mintz Levin in
Well, that
Boston.
person should be able to just tell them what you need and just let them go to work.
They're a startup attorney, but they're not a patent attorney.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely need an intellectual property attorney. I had a comment too, as far as the name was concerned. I would just call it Blue, right? Just call it Blue. It's one word, boom. People, and have a water sign or something like that behind it, and then that's it. But that was just my 2 cents. I've got a couple more here that I just wanted to exporting was something, but then again, if you don't have a patent or anything, any protection, then I'd try to avoid exporting. There's plenty enough stuff for us to do here in this country, but I mean, that's definitely Central Florida International Trade Office is definitely something that you need to hit once you get some patent protection, and that's international patent protection too. And I guess let's see. Sea Blue, that's another good one. So I guess the final question then, I'll just hand over to Eric and let him ask that, and we can see what's up.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Great presentation. Being there in Cincinnati, I have one question for you is, what do you think of the Jesse Winker, Eugenio Suarez trade to Seattle?
If this is a baseball question?
Yes.
I am horrible at keeping up with baseball.
Oh,
so
too bad. Lifelong Reds fan, so
that's awesome.
not happy with that trade. But that's just for me. The actual question. Oh, go ahead. You might have an answer. What is it?
I was just gonna say I grew up in St. Louis playing hockey and baseball, and I eventually fell away from baseball. But I was still a huge Cardinals fan for a long time, and around the time I got to college, I kind of just stopped paying attention. So I'm very disconnected from what's going on in baseball nowadays. So.
We'll get Fox Sports Ohio on your cable package and you can watch the games. So no, the actual real question is, what can we as a community do for you?
Obviously, this feedback from everybody has been extremely helpful, both constructive and definitely gives me some guidance on what I should be prioritizing. I think connections are always great. Connections into the space that we're trying to work with, whether that's community partners or different organizations like Denny, thank you for the Rotary Club contact. Yeah, I think that those are what's most helpful at the moment.
Okay, great. All right, well, we've got a few minutes, so I'm gonna share my screen one more time. And I have a discussion question for us that I want people to talk about. I know this has been an issue for me lately, but I'm wondering how everybody else deals with it. How do you fight burnout? And if you have people who work for you, how do you help them deal with it? And this is for everybody, by the way. This is so okay. Michael, you go first, but everybody, let's participate in this and let's see if we can get some good ideas going.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think as a startup founder, it's a very hard thing to avoid, but obviously doing something that you're passionate about and being happy with what you do. And if you work from home, which I do most days, finding ways to take care of yourself, and like not sit on the couch the entire day on your laptop has been really good for me. I don't know. I think that a lot of times many entrepreneurs get so caught up and lost in their work. And one person in my network recently said something that the more you play, the more people will pay. Because if you are just a constant ball of stress, it actually makes you pretty unpleasant to be around for both the people that work for you and the people that are engaging in your startup. So finding ways to really take care of yourself. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Sean.
I think number one is recognizing you have a burnout. That's the first thing. We have to recognize we have problem, and then you have to get to the problem. Right now, it all starts with things that we can't control. All the stress and all this comes because we don't have freedom that we want. So in the corporation startup case, every day is a challenge. You have to cope up with it. So it starts at the CEO, actually, the culture you create and everything. So best thing is to recognizing it and try to slowly work at it. It can't be overnight. It can't be that. You have to change it slowly. So I will be writing on that one page of surpass you actually, about half a dozen steps to get there.
Okay. Rupert, you work 26 hours a day. How do you fight burnout?
What do you think that's for?
I actually
Yeah,
always
I
thought
mean,
that was a car reference.
Well, yeah, it is, but it's true. However, I'm beyond burnout. I mean, I've got to come up with a phrase for what's even past burnout. Because I've been an entrepreneur since 1980 and been averaging 60 to 80 weeks that entire time, 60 to 80 hour weeks, and with no vacations and everything like that. It's like, yeah. And then so that's where resilience comes in, to be honest, and determination, because those are that, and hope. Those three things, get me up in the morning and keep me on the phone and coming up with ideas and making and seeking counsel and things like that. Those three things, and also I always think of the Matrix quote, we ain't come this far, right? It's like, come all this way, and giving up is just not an option. It's just absolutely not an option. And and then along the way you get some nice treats, like our award we got last month and so forth. So it's just got to keep going. And like Michael said, you got to take care of yourself. Meditation's good, exercise is good. I don't do either of those nearly enough. So yeah, that would be my 2 cents.
I think burnout is primarily a problem if you're an employee. If you're an entrepreneur, it's a little bit easier because it forces you to think, do something different. But if you're an employee and you're trapped in a job and you can't stand it and you're burned out, now you got problems. So now it becomes upon your boss, does he recognize the fact that you do have burnout, and what can he do to make your life a little bit easier? Not an easy thing to do. That's why a lot of people change jobs, but that's not easy to do either. There's not always something available for you that you want to do, that you're interested in, or fits what you think you are. So that's a big problem. Burnout is a huge problem in our society. But I think it's a little easier for us that are serial entrepreneurs because we can always think of something else or do something differently. The average employee is not in that situation. They can't really do that. And you can get trapped even in your own business if you're an entrepreneur and you're stuck. You have nowhere to go, and that's burnout too. So it's not an easy thing, and it's one of the biggest problems we've got in society.
I took my first vacation 2 weeks ago. I took a week off and I didn't work. And I counted and I realized I had not done that for 10 or 12 years. to have a whole week where I'm not working. I mean, the only thing I did was like, I did 1 million cups and I had 2 meetings scheduled and I did those, but I didn't work. I read a lot. I, would go hang out at coffee shops with my book and just kind of farted around for an entire week. It was wonderful. And I realized as I was doing it, how much I needed it because I kept feeling guilty that I was doing it. Like I should be working, and I had to refrain from working. I felt much better, when I got back into it on Monday, this last Monday. So I definitely recommend it.
Dude, I feel for you.
I will say something. Work never killed anybody that I know of. It's all here. I'm 82, sleep only 4.5 hours a day for last 45 years. I get up at 5:10 in the morning, 7 days a week. It all starts here. So you have to enjoy every minute of what you are doing. So you are in control. You manage your mind rather than mind managing you. That's what happens right now. Mind is managing us. We are letting it happen. So you control. Okay? It's all that starts. Most of the corporation world, it all starts at the top.
Yep.
They are not employee centric. They are not customer centric. They're thinking about their own paycheck and bonus and that kind of a thing. And they think employees love them. Not really. Well, that's why they are leaving. So I think we have a big problem right now, corporations and everywhere. So we have to address that, the major thing. I'm talking to a lot of people, including Arens and UCF on that. Okay? So, but it all started individual. It's very easy. I'm managing it. I'm a living example. Right? I'm 24 hours. Every waking hour, I'm thinking. I'm innovating. So anybody can do that.
Oh yeah. Vijay, you have your hand raised.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I 100% agree with Sean, and my thoughts are in line with what Sean said. Basically, Sean said what to do, and I'm going to say how to do it. That's what I practice. So usually, it is the difference between what I think I want to do or what I think I can expect out of me, but versus what I can actually do. Right? That's the gap. Usually, people get into stress. And I usually follow this. When I have a feeling of whatever that is, it could be a frustration, it could be anger, it could be anxiety, or whatever that is. When I start feeling something, I try to think and act upon it, right? So the time difference between from the feeling to think to act, if you can shorten it, then you can manage the stress very well. If you keep it prolonged from the time of you feel and then from to the time you act by thinking, if it is, say, for example, if I'm angry and that's a feeling, and if I don't start quickly thinking why I am getting angry and then act upon it, then if you prolong that thought, then you get more burned out, more stressed. So I try to minimize the time of what I feel and how I think, what happened to it, and then act upon it. If you can shorten the time duration, that will be the best way to handle the burnout. And the best action is ignoring. If you can't do anything, if you don't have control, ignore it. That's fine. Do not respond. Let the feeling neutralize. Let the ground the feeling. You can get there. That's how I practice. And it took a long time for me. It's been like 5-6 years when I realized this, and then I tried practicing this to minimize this time. And now I can do it. I mean, it was like 12-24 hours earlier. I get stressed out, and now I'm able to minimize that within like 10 minutes at the maximum. So whatever feel I have, even happiness, even enjoyfulness, right? If you can minimize that and then move out of that, that's the best thing you can do to handle the burnout. And otherwise, when you are overworking on whatever you are passionate about, I do gardening, right? And I just get out of my home, go to backyard, and then do something, and then get back. That eases out. So do something which you even if you're doing something passionate, and if you are working a long hours, do something else which you're passionate, so you can manage that. That's what I do.
Great. All right, good suggestion. Tammy said, and she's got the same problem I do. When I take breaks and vacations, I don't feel productive, and I'm not a fan of that feeling. I know what you mean. Jane or Jezreel, do you have anything? How do you fight burnout?
By going to 1 Million Cups and hearing inspiring presentations like the one I hear today that's going to change the world. That's a fantastic way to start the day. When I walk around Lake Eola today, I'm going to think about it.
Oh,
I love
cool.
it.
I'm buying you coffee next time.
In a 1 Million Cups cup.
Yep, we have those. Jezreel, how about you? You're on mute. There you go.
Yes. Fighting burnout. I just try to find the best thing to put my energy into. I feel like if it's burnout, then it's not productive. Obviously I don't, you try so hard and so you get to a certain point where it's just like, if there's no further, then you start to get that burnout because it's not moving anywhere. So just always just trying to find something new, I guess. And then taking on the downside, just putting my mind into relaxation and just ideas. I don't know.
Okay.
Big time to myself, really.
Great. Yeah, that's important. That's very important. All right. Well, this is great discussion. I'm going to share my screen one last time. Next week, we are going to be hearing from Enrique Portillo of the Oviedo Soccer Club. Oviedo is where Tammy and I both are, and this is a youth development soccer league, so I'm interested in hearing more about that. Real quick, there is a survey. I'll drop this in the chat as well, but there is a survey that if you could take just a few minutes and answer a few questions about 1 Million Cups, just go to bit.ly 1MCO survey, and let me drop that in the chat as well so I don't forget. But if you could just, it should take you no more than 5 minutes. Depends on how much you write, but that would help us figure out how do we reach new people, how do we reach back out to the people who have been here and we would like to bring back. So if you would do that, I would greatly appreciate it. Please download the chat. You do that at the bottom right of the entire screen. There's the button with the 3 dots on it. Click that, and then there's a save chat menu command, and you can do that and download it. So so especially you, Michael, there are a lot of people with a lot of good questions, and they're putting up their contact information. So you want to download that before you leave. And otherwise, we will be back here next week hearing from Enrique about Oviedo Soccer Club. So thank you all for coming, and we'll see you in 7 days. Take care.
Hey, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
So Michael, stick around for a second if you could.
Don't forget to save the chat.
Yep. So Michael, I'm curious, do you guys have working machines, or is that still a prototype?
We do. So we we're building the first production ready model now in a lab, and then we went through some team restructure through the new year, where we had our autonomous developer actually jump ship and join he actually went to GE Aviation. And we were able to, very lucky that we even were able to make this happen, but we got somebody, his name is Rob Charvet from Ohio Drone. It was a government contracting drone company. And this guy now just does autonomous solutions contracting. So he jumped on, he's helping us out. We should be at a launch ready position in the next couple of months. And by that, I mean like late June at the latest. So we have pilots lined up. The first one that we're building now, we'll launch it in the Ohio River for a short period of time, and then we'll ship it out to the San Francisco Bay area for one of our pilot customers.
Okay.
Michael, this is
Yes.
Sean. I left
Question.
my telephone number in the chat. Give me a call when you get a minute. We'll talk about provisional patent and all that kind of a thing. That's extremely important. Okay. I have more than 40 provisional patents. There's a reason for it.
Okay.
So I think you have an amazing opportunity. I think I am afraid somebody's already stole it, your idea. I won't be surprised. It may be too late, but so let's talk about it. Give me a call. I put my telephone number there, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've got your number written down.
407
407.
718 8115. Okay? Thank you. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, the IP thing for us has been really tricky for a number of reasons. The conversation has been one, we're developing this autonomous software. Is it worth patenting or copywriting? Because, and software is a tricky thing, right? Somebody could go out and write a completely different set of code that does the same functionality as what we do, and completely circumnavigate whatever IP we put in place and just jump into the market. On the hardware that we've developed, it's the same thing. There's a million different ways to build a boat with a hinging arm that gives you trash. So the question has been, with the university, at least up until this point, because we do have advisors that work there as well. Is there a way that doing IP will actually help us build a moat around the business? And we're just not that sure that it will.
Yeah,
To be completely honest.
that's true. A lot of different ways to design a boat.
Yeah. So I know that was a heavy talking point today. I don't know if you guys have more thoughts on that, but I would love to hear it.
Okay. I don't know much about patents or anything like that. One time I have worked with a product that was patented. In fact, the guy did it himself, which was impressive because that's hard. But he wrote the whole patent himself, did all the research, got it all taken care of. And so I know they're important. I know people can steal things. What you don't want is for them to steal your design and do that. But you can't patent an idea. Who's the Dutch kid who's got the barges? That's who Coca-Cola's working with.
Yeah, his name's Boyan Slot.
Yeah, I mean, did he have the first one? Maybe. Is yours inspired by that? Maybe. But can he say, hey, they stole that? No, because it's a whole different boat, a whole different collection system. It's a whole different way of doing it. So if somebody came up with an identical design to yours, you could say, yeah, that's most likely stolen. But I can go with a rowboat and a net, and, do the same thing.
Well, I've had several patents as well as trademarks and other things, copyrights and such. And I wouldn't be too concerned about somebody stealing your idea because there's 7 billion people in the world and we're all pretty creative about things. The value of a patent is in the claims. Okay. So the claims are basically what you are literally claiming to be an integral feature / value of your product or service that you own, right? So nobody else can claim that on their patent. Okay. technically, the rule of thumb is that if they change something 10%, then that it's a new patent. No, that's not the case. It's basically the claims. So, you know, my 2-seat interactive full motion video game patent is probably one of the most referenced, you know, flight simulator patent, you know, there is. So the thing is what you need to do is you need to get a patent attorney to put together a package and file a provisional patent like as soon as humanly possible. And it shouldn't cost more than, I don't know, these days. Last time I did it, it was like $3,000, I think it was. So it should be less than 5. But it's money well spent, because that really puts you on the map too. Because when an investor, if you want to raise capital, the first thing you lead off with is our patented technology, right? Or our patent pending technology, right? They love that stuff because that's an asset that they can utilize as collateral, potential collateral for the money they provide. Which is a hell of a lot easier to get money that way than it is just saying, oh, you know, I've got an idea, give me money. So yeah, I'd put that at the top of my list if I were you. And then of course the other one is you got to work on the business model a little bit more. You know, you're not going to get that 10% of that market if you're trying to sell them stuff or whatever. I didn't really see that slide that clearly, but you know, I strongly suggest that you okay, let me give you an example. So when I had my simulator company, it would cost me $10,000 to $12,000 to build them, and I'd sell them for 35, right? The thing is that a large majority of my market couldn't afford $35,000, right? But what I did is every time I sold one, I'd build 2, and I'd have 1 left over, and I'd have enough money left over for operations and running the business. So then what I would do is I would take the one I'd put them both on a truck. I'd take one to the person who bought it, and then I'd, you know, set it up in their location and all that. And then I'd take the other one in the truck and go across town to a competitor of his on the other side of town that's doing 500,000 people a year. And, you know, once he saw it, he falls in love with it. Holy crap, this is the greatest thing since Swiss cheese. I need to have this. And he says, how much is it? And I said, it's 35 grand. And he was like, oh, I just spent 35 grand on laundry. I'm sorry, I don't have the money. And then I'd say, well, I'll tell you what, I'll give it to you, right? As long as you put it up in your front window so everybody can see it, right? And give me 50% of the money you make off it on a weekly basis, which I'll direct debit from your account because I've got a little, and this is back in 1996, you know, and I put a mobile emitter on it, so we would collect the data from it every night and so forth. We knew exactly how much, and then we could debit the money from their accounts every week. And yeah, and so that started a little empire. So that was a lot of fun. So the idea here is cash flow.
Right.
Okay. So my suggestion would be do the same thing. You know, if you can build these things, once you start getting it, do you know what your costs are to build these things yet in quantity?
In quantity, no. Without economies of scale considered right now, we're building them at about 5,500.
Okay, so you should be able to get that down to under $2,000 in quantity. So yeah, I do the same model. Do the same model. Sit there and say, okay, we'll sell it to people who want to buy it, right? And say, okay, we'll sell it to them for $8,000, right? You make them for 2, sell it for 4 times that. And then other people do a model and just say, you can lease it because maybe they might not need it. Maybe they're, you know, some places are going to be seasonal, right? Because the winds change and things like that. So for 4 or 5 months, they've just got nothing but dead fish and whatnot and trash everywhere. But then the rest of the year, the wind blows in the other direction and they're okay. So, you know, those people aren't going to want to buy one and let it sit around for 7 months. So yeah, I would do a leasing type of a thing, you know, say
is right now it's going to be actually broken down into 3 ways. So there will be, to start in select cities, we are talking about doing like an emergency rental where the price for a 2-day minimum rental is like almost the equivalent to a monthly subscription on the hardware. So say you're in Florida and red tide hits and you're just like, oh my, you're an arena operator, oh my gosh, I have no idea what to do. You can send us a message, we'll have somebody drop it off for 2 days and clean up the marina and then take it out. But then the second model is a monthly rental fee, like you mentioned, where you're getting access to the data and the user platform and the hardware. And that would be an option for either a 6-month contract on the rental or a 12-month contract on the rental. And then the third option would be buying it outright.
Right. Okay. Just make those as crystal clear as you can with people. But I'll tell you on your first point. So in 1993, I took on a client. He was an engineering professor at Florida at FS. No, he was in Gainesville, or he was a Gator. And he came up with an idea for a machine that removed 99% of petroleum distillates from the top 6 inches of a body of water. Okay. And so he hired me. I wrote his business plan. I raised a little over $500,000, and we built a system. It was massive. It was so big that we bought a train. But it was a box car, but it was a flatbed that had a box that fit over it. So we leased a facility, and we would, every morning we'd raise the box up and then work and build the machine. And then at night we'd drop it down. So in 1995, like we had just like 3 weeks, 3 weeks after we had finally finished the machine and we wanted to test it somewhere, we didn't know where to test it. And this system was up in Ocala. And so we wanted to test it. And then the next thing I know, I'm on TV, I'm watching TV, and the admiral of the Coast Guard is sitting there saying, we have a little problem in Tampa. He said, this barge carrying a couple 100 tons of garbage decided it didn't want to go where the tugboat wanted it to go, and it broke away and it started drifting across the bay, and it saw its friend, the barge full of diesel fuel, a couple 100,000 gallons of diesel fuel, and said, hey buddy, how you doing? And hit him, and then that broke away from its tugboat, and then the two of them slammed into the bridge abutment in Tampa Bay. And now you've got the mayor is being told that they have to close down the Bay of Tampa for 6 months, right? And you can look this up. And so I immediately called Ralph, the guy, and said, I don't care how you do it, get it down there and clean it up for free. Show them how to do it, get it down there, clean it up for free, and be done with it. Clean that mess up in 3 weeks. Okay. Within 3 weeks of that, we had a $19 million offer on the table from Shell Oil. Okay. And so what I'm telling you is get as many of these things put together as you can, and wait for, it's going to happen, especially in Florida. It's going to happen, right? You're going to algae bloom. You're going to get something going on, something that hits the news or whatnot. Just send your team and 4 or 5 of these things down there and do it for free. But make sure that there's cameras out there, make sure that there's press out there and whatnot, and show them how you do that voodoo you do so well, right? And that will be worth its weight in gold with regards to investment capital, marketing, advertising, the whole shot. That'll be well worth it. Okay.
I just dropped a URL for Google News Alerts that I use for a few different search terms, but you can set up a saved search for red tide in Florida and have it email you anytime that happens. So you'll get blog articles about, hey, you remember that red tide last year in Florida? That's fine. But you can specify that only the news stories get emailed to you. So you get alerted immediately when the next red tide bloom happens. And it'll almost certainly happen in Tampa because that's where they've happened before. They just drive straight down I-75 and, you know, it's what, door to door, 18 hours, 16 hours.
Something like that. Yeah. Also, I don't know if I mentioned this to you guys. I'm in Oregon right now.
Oh, you are? Whereabouts?
Portland. So.
My family's from Portland.
Nice.
Nice city.
It is nice. It's going through a pretty rough period right now.
Yeah, we heard.
Yeah. Everything you hear is actually doesn't sum it up. So.
I've got friends in Portland too, and I'm hearing it all the time.
Yeah.
But you know, like I said, even if we're in Florida, I don't care if it's Bangladesh, man, do it. Put your team together, plan it all out, and be ready for when the hammer drops. Okay. Fly your guys out here, put them in cargo hold. I don't care. Get them to Florida with your systems and just show up and say, hey, we're here to clean this stuff up. And if people say, who the hell are you? Just clean it up and say, we're whoever, right?
Yeah.
We're sea blue or blue or whatever you want to call yourselves at that point. But yeah.
Cool.
Okay. And I guarantee you, if you clean it up, the local papers will go nuts and it'll go viral, and then just be ready for the onslaught.
Michael, what kind of marketing are you doing right now? I know you got one of your guys doing branding.
Yeah, so Chris, he actually brings a lot of, he's the old man of the team, even though he's not very old. He was a brand marketer at Procter & Gamble, and then he was working on new business development at Ocean Spray for a CBD water brand that they launched. And he jumped on board with us. He's a lifelong surfer, and he's seen the problem firsthand for a very long time. And he exited his startup in 2017, so he was looking for something more to get into. He did all the branding work for us. The one thing that's great about our logo is we can change the name without having to change up any of our branding again. So if we do decide to go with something else, none of that will have to change. The marketing per se at the moment is more of some low-hanging fruit stuff. So we've done some local news appearances. We've been in a couple articles that have actually made it front page in the Cincinnati region, doing some stuff like this. He encouraged us, the founders, to start doing some podcasts that are local, and not local, focused on the industry stuff, so the industry players are listening and start to hear our names and recognize us. We aren't, so this is the tricky part again. The funding that we get from the university, it's so heavily policed. We cannot spend that money on anything other than materials and employees to build our R&D devices. So even I cannot touch the funding that comes from the university. So it can't go to marketing. It can't go to trade shows. It can't go to
yeah. See, that's a huge
anything
problem.
like that. It's very,
that's a massive constraint.
very much so R&D only. So
I put in the
now,
chat the Rally Accelerator, which is here in at Rollins, and you know, I encourage you to apply to that.
Oh,
So, you know, that. which
Sorry,
there's-
my Wi-Fi.
So the Rally Accelerator here in Orlando, actually it's a couple doors just down the street from me, but I encourage you to go to all the social impact accelerators and, you know, incubators and whatnot, and venture capital groups and so forth, and apply.
There is, so we that's another thing. We've done